Get up earlier than anybody else. Stay up way past when people go to sleep. And you'll get lots of headaches. And the ocean at the top of the food chain is sharp. So when you get there at the top, remember what's swimming around.
Here's your main advice for today.
Everything is silent. I'm gonna get my paper out.
You have paper?
I do.
Okay.
Oh, I'm right. Since it's down, they're right in front of me.
About an hour. We came down and met with the resident at about 3. And drove around town. She showed us some things.
I can't hear you.
So we've been here for a while. I'm sure it's all good. Where'd you come from, Jacksonville or Hawaii?
I came from Jacksonville, but I stopped in Hawaii along the way. So my class is usually like now it's coming
No, we had a regular meeting. That's the whole thing in this meeting, if you look at it. Right here. After they do this part, as soon as they get to this, we step down. But here, you're supposed to, we got these cuts here. Although I won't stay for it. I think I'm supposed to do it.
You could have come right back to the resident.
So I think I'm gonna hang around. What's this? Anything else?
I'm going to do that.
What is all this?
And first of all, I'd like to welcome you as our neighbors. Naturally, we're all neighbors in this room. With that said, as we talk about some topics tonight, remember, always remember, we can agree to disagree. There are no personal assaults that happen in this room. We're good neighbors. Amen. And so we want to welcome you. We want to welcome you to a new day in Dunnellon. We got to see some stuff last night. Bridges going across rivers, bike trails, all kinds of things that the state is willing to step up to the plate because they love us so much down here in this corner. But we want you tonight to be a part of the next step in this journey as our city expands. We are a tri-county city. We're which I call us the jewel. We're the double river jewel right here, Twin Rivers. True. And we have a resource that you'd have to travel far and wide to find it. Anything else like this on earth. So God has truly kissed this place. And as stewards, neighbors, it's our job to make sure that we're respectful of it and do the right thing. So we're trusting our input. With that said, tonight, our historic board, and let me just, first of all, here's some of our neighbors too. They volunteer. This is all their time, their hours, their energy to give to you, to make Dunnellon a better place. And as a neighbor, I would would encourage you, if you find out there's some things you would like to volunteer for, we want to accept you. We'd love for you to come help us out. And I'm going to turn it over now to Linda, who's the head of the board. Unlike the council, this will be very quick.
I also welcome you to the historic board. If you're all standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Linda Fernandez. Here. Dave Myers. Here. Viola Soph.
Here.
Jamie Keel. Here. James Burchett. Marty Bond.
Here.
Lonnie Smith.
Here.
Teresa Monberg here. The agenda was posted on the city's website and City Hall bulletin board on Tuesday, February 6th. Okay, the only thing we have on our agenda tonight is the minutes from January 8th, 2019. Have you all had a chance to go over those minutes?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Are there any corrections or additions? All those in favor?
Aye.
And now I would like to turn this meeting over to Allison McGrath, who's going to give the presentation for us tonight. And thank you for coming here.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? No. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Allison McGrath. I'm a certified land use planner with Finley Horn. I'd like to take a couple minutes and introduce my team. For those of you that were at our last meeting, here at our last meeting a couple weeks ago, you may remember Vincent Spar. He was our fine scribe at the last meeting, passed out our note cards. And then we also have with us an intern that's new with our office. This is Amanda Lunday. Please extend a warm welcome to Amanda. This is her first public meeting. For those of us that have been in this business for a long time, this is my 25th year as a certified planner, well, in the planning industry. So I would like to hope that this will not be her last public meeting. But if it is, I guess I'm the only one that's responsible for that. So thank you for coming. I appreciate it. So, how many of you were here at the last meeting that we had? Well, I want to say thank you. Lonnie, you don't count. Come on. That's cheating. You're upping my numbers. But I want to thank all of you that were here at the last meeting for coming back. It's always the true test of, how you did the first time, if folks actually take the time to come back again. It's tough as a planner to engage with the public and to get you to come back. And I really appreciate that. I mentioned at the first meeting that a project like this is really based on the amount of civic engagement that you put into it. So the fact that you've taken another evening out of your schedule, and I just heard that you had another meeting here last night as well, so I will try to be respectful of your time. I will try not to waste your time this evening, and I'm hopeful that you'll come back again for the next meeting that we have about this project. But I want to genuinely thank you for taking the time to come this evening. Now, how many of you took me up on the challenge to bring a friend? A friend that you didn't bring the last time. Thank you. I appreciate you doing that as well. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. I know so many of you appreciated the public participation part of the last meeting. So I hope you're all ready to participate this evening, because there will be a lot of that throughout the evening tonight. Just going to go quickly over our agenda. Let me pause for 1 minute. There were some handouts at the back table. You don't need to worry yourself about spending the meeting looking through that unless you find what I have to say extraordinarily boring this evening. Then you have reading material, and it's super, super small print, so it should keep you entertained for the entire 2 hours that we have scheduled for you this evening. But that's really for you to take home. Hopefully we will cover a lot of that throughout this evening. And if it is too small for you to read, we can certainly email it to you. You can get with any one of the three of us or with any of the city staff. Give us your email or other contact information, and we'll make sure that we get you a copy that you can read at your leisure at home. So we're going to do a quick review of the Competitive Florida Partnership Program, because I saw that there were several of you that were not here at the last meeting, may not have been here back a couple months ago when I came and spoke briefly to the council about the meeting. We will talk about what we discussed at the first community conversation meeting, which was a couple of weeks ago. We'll talk about the draft vision. So those of you that participated a couple weeks ago, you remember we filled out little cards and we talked about what you liked about the city of Dunnellon, or how you would characterize Dunnellon. We're going to talk about some priority areas for the city, and then we're going to talk about Dunnellon's assets. It's going to be a large part of the discussion this evening because it feeds into what happens at the next level of this program. Any questions before we go ahead and get started? For those of you that were here the last meeting, I try to like to keep this a very informal process, but kind of structured nonetheless. Feel free to stop and ask me questions along the way. This program is for you as much as it is for me, but at the end of the day, we're trying to put together an economic development strategy that you will use after we're long gone. Okay? So the more you ask me questions and the more you engage, the more we can give you a work product that is a reflection of you and what the city of Dunnellon wants to be as you go forward into the future. So just to recap quickly, the state of Florida created the Competitive Florida Partnership Program several years ago with the goal to really help Florida communities thrive. It's really designed for rural Florida. In particular, the state of Florida recognized that rural Florida was kind of at an economic disadvantage to compete with some of the bigger boys in terms of attracting economic development. That doesn't mean they're trying to mimic the Orlandos, the Miamis. We talked a lot about even Homestead at the last meeting. Those of you that were here might recall that. Nobody here wanted to be Homestead, right? Right? Correct. I think I heard maybe an amen subtly in there, right? No. So the purpose here is really to kind of look at what you have in your community and how you want to leverage those assets to really propel what you have and make them even better and help help the things that you really like here to thrive, right? So this is what the program was really founded on. I mentioned already that Vinny and I were here at the last meeting. Amanda threw me a curveball. I didn't know she was coming. I was super impressed that she, at the last minute, volunteered her time to come this evening and took an interest in coming, so I apologize that she's not listed on the slide. And then those of you that were here at the last meeting saw that Josh Askey will be participating in this process. He is your leader, if you will, at the state of Florida. He oversees the Competitive Florida Partnership Program. You will be seeing him if you participate in the asset mapping exercise, which I'll talk about a little bit later this evening. You're still the most important part of this team, even though we're here to provide guidance to you throughout this process. Nothing's going to happen with this overall program after we put the strategy together unless you embrace it and you continue to participate in moving the program forward. There will be tasks that have to happen after we leave, after the report is done. There will be action items, and there will need to be champions of those action items. So be looking out for some of the things that you're passionate about as we go through the next several months of this process, and see if there are things that you identify with that you could embrace, that you could become the task leader for, so that when the economic development strategy is done, you can carry through and help the city to realize those action items. So I mentioned already we had the first community conversation meeting. It's kind of an unusual term. It's a term that's utilized by the state of Florida. And I call it unusual because I've never seen it characterized that way before, but I'm trying to embrace it and I'm starting to embrace it, and I would like for it to be a conversation. I think the last meeting that we had, we achieved that. I felt that there was good public participation at the last meeting. I haven't heard anybody say anything much to me tonight, but we're going to get to that. This is the overall schedule. It's a very compressed schedule. I apologize for that. It's by no fault of the city, and Mayor, I apologize. I want to thank you again for inviting us back this evening. We appreciate the opportunity to serve the city in this regard, so thank you very much. It's a compressed schedule, but the state of Florida was a little tardy in executing the contracts, and unfortunately the way the program works is it has to be complete in May. So we will compress the schedule, we will get everything done that needs to be done in a timely manner, and the city won't suffer for it. We can give you our commitment on that. And the good news is you won't get meeting fatigue, because it'll be like ripping off a Band-Aid. We'll be done before you know it, right? So we'll have the next community conversation meeting on March the 12th. Those of you that were here at the last meeting may notice that that was a date that's different. The schedule changed a little bit. Our partners at the state of Florida flipped the asset mapping exercise date with the community, the third community conversation date. They wanted to have the asset mapping date on March the 20th. So please note your calendars that we will have our third community conversation before the asset mapping exercise. And then we will move into city council workshops, and then the city council final adoption or acceptance of the report meeting. Any questions? No? So at the last meeting, you'll recall that we talked about a boundary. And I had shown some data of population projections and workforce and things like that. Anybody remember? We kind of looked at some of that. And I appreciated the feedback that I received that the community really tries to embrace more of a greater Dunnellon area, right? So Lonnie was kind enough to send me a map of what is typically considered the greater Dunnellon area. And I think Vinny had to pick me up off the floor when I saw what that is. It's a very large area. Unfortunately, given the scope of this project and the time frame in which we have to do it, we just simply can't embrace that entire area for the purposes of this project. Plain and simple, we just can't. So we worked with Lonnie to come up with a 2-mile radius around the current city limits. Hopefully, this boundary is acceptable for you for the purposes of this study. It also coincidentally makes a heart with this being Valentine's Week. So there is that. We should have shown it in red, but
that was on you.
But for the purposes of this, we're going to use the 2-mile radius for the study area for take it and extend that to the greater Dunnellon area and do this yourself. Okay, so don't feel that just because we're having to stop at this, that once it's done here, you can't go and look at assets that are beyond that once this study's done. But just for the purposes of what we're tasked to do in the time frame that we have to do it, we had to take a manageable boundary. Otherwise, we don't think that we would be able to duly serve the city. So here's some photos of the community conversation meeting number 1. I want to tell you, I mentioned that I've done this for 25 years, and I've done it in communities, we talked a little bit, all over the state of Florida and in other states as well. For a community of this size, and I think Lonnie and I both talked about it the day after, we also talked about it independently with Josh, I've never seen a turnout like what we had at community conversation number 1. So let me just say thank you, really. Mr. Mayor, you should be extraordinarily proud that your folks came out. and that this has happened again. It's very, very rare. It's very rare to see that. And again, I'm beyond thrilled that you all come back and accepted my challenge to bring a friend and participate. But this is just fantastic. And Josh, your state partner, was ecstatic about it, because for him, what he wants is for you to participate in the asset mapping exercise. And I know those of you that have not been to one of these meetings yet, you're probably like, what is she talking about? I promise you we're going to get to that. And you're going to have more information about it this evening than you probably want, but it's very important that you participate in that exercise. And he was very, very excited that we had that level of participation in this process. So thank you for that. So at the first meeting, we passed out little note cards, and we asked everybody to write down how they see Dunnellon. The good, the bad, the ugly. Don't write your name on it. We don't want to. We can go sit up here if you want. Wow, get a front row. Same price.
Okay. We get the back row. All right.
We didn't ask anybody to write their names on. We aren't pitting neighbors against neighbors. You heard the mayor, we're all in this together, right? But we can't put together a good program if we don't recognize that there are faults, or there are flaws, or there are concerns. It can't all just be sugar-coated or whatever. We wanted to hear everything that you felt about it, right? So we went back and read through all of the cards, and we've created this that kind of captured what you feel Dunnellon is. So bear with me, if we read through some of these, you tell me if you can associate with some of these. You don't need to raise your hand. I told you, if you flinch when I say any of these things, then that's your own fault, because then your neighbors will know what you wrote. But so somebody said Dunnellon is afraid of growth. Somebody said Dunnellon is beautiful, which I would have to agree with. It's a diamond in the rough. Somebody said it's mismanaged. Somebody said it's charming. It's family oriented. It's listening to the feedback and presenting you with a plan to move forward. So thank you for providing this feedback. It goes hand in hand with the rest of the comments that we heard, which is what Dunnellon needs. So some of you went further and not only said what Dunnellon currently is, but also what's lacking. And this is extraordinarily helpful to us,